All right. Well, you have an amazing podcast. I don't know, first of all, how you have the time to host a podcast.
Mm.
Secondly, I don't know how you find your guests. You find the coolest guests that
Mm.
that I've ever heard. Some of them are not like household names, like the dude in Florida who's eating invasive species of iguanas.
Wanna, yeah.
What? And he's like, yeah, just like this is food, and
Yeah.
people don't want this, and I'll just grill up these iguanas and eat them. And he's great. He's like natural carnivore and like thriving. We talked to Dazzle, who you've hosted on your show, also in Canada. He called you the
Mhm.
carnivore samurai, which I thought was
Oh, yeah,
hilarious.
yeah.
So
That's
awesome.
funny.
He's great. He completely flipped his health, back to good after being, plant based vegan for as long as he was, a long, long time, as healthy as ever now being carnivore. And you had one guest in particular that absolutely blew me away. So I'm listening to you interview some rancher in the middle of nowhere, Canada. Her name's Maggie. She says she was born in 1941, which makes her 82 years old. And she's
Mhm.
explaining things. And I always listen to podcasts. I listen to them quick. I usually at, two times the speed. But even for what I was listening to fast, she was speaking pretty quick, like
Mhm.
as fast as I essentially. And I'm like, wait a second, like there's no way, just based on this person's voice, that she's 82 years old. So I had to stop the podcast to pull it up on YouTube so I could watch her. And again, not only is she explaining her experience, basically her entire life as a carnivore,
Mhm.
she's explaining science. Like she's telling
Mhm.
you exactly why plants don't want to get eaten. This is the best food. This is what we do with our kids. Our oldest is now 56. Like, what an amazing episode that you did with her that has really gone viral. Her picture is all over the internet. You look at this woman, she looks like she's in her 40s. She's
Mhm.
82 years old. You had the opportunity after the symposium in San Diego to go spend some time with her. And I'm really curious to hear what that experience was like.
Well, it was amazing. I mean, she's amazing too, and she is 82. She was born in 1941, and a lot of, I mean, I believe her because I spoke to her, and I mean, just talking to her, I was very clear, that she was authentic. But some of the people in the comments were like, there's no way, there's not a chance. This is bullshit. I mean, I like the carnivore diet, but like, this is just giving us a bad name and making us look bad because this is an obvious lie. And so she was like, just really just confused by that, because that wasn't even the point of her talking like, hey, look at me, I'm doing so great. She was talking about how, yes, eating meat is great, and that's important for people to know about, but ranchers are being driven out of business, and one-third of the ranchers in Canada lost their herds last year and were driven out. And it's just getting worse, and there's all these conditions, and so we get the meat-based movement going, and then who the hell's going to make the meat, right? And so, we need to address these sorts of things before it's a critical issue. And so that's what she was talking about. She wasn't really talking about her amazing health, of which she has. Um, so she ended up sending me pictures of her birth certificate, commercial driver's license, and passport. And I can tell you, she's born in 1941. And I met her daughter, one of her daughters. I met two of her grandkids, and I saw pictures of her great grandkids, right? Of which she has eight, you know? And so, this is all completely legit. And, she's not only 82, she not only looks half her age, but she is extraordinarily healthy. She moves like a fit 30-year-old. She was literally hopping over 5 foot tall fences to go and corral a raging bull, and I mean a raging bull. And this guy was a monster. His name was Growler. It's a big, massive bull, and he got out of his little enclosure and worked his way over to, because they had different herds separated with different bulls, and he wanted to be with these other cows, and so he was staring off with the other bull through the fence. And she was like, "Oh God, if they get to each other, Growler's going to kill him. Growler's just going to kill him because he was twice the size of this other bull."
Wow.
And so she literally hopped over, just popped over, just quick as hell, and just like, "Growler, come on!" Just grabbing him, pulling him, corralling him. I was like, "Oh my God!" I was like, "I'm not getting in there." And she was just, it was just like nothing. It was like nothing to her, climbing up and down, big tractors and combines. And they have a little sailboat that they sort of take around the lake, and they're building a bigger sailboat so they can sailed down to Colombia, where they bought a ranch down there. And she was like climbing up the mast and grabbing the ropes and all these sorts of things, just like it was nothing. 82 years old, and not just like hobbling and like careful and like, oh, she's good for 82. She's not dead yet. She hasn't turned to dust. She's not in a wheelchair. No, she's walking around working 14, 16-hour days. She's up at 5 a.m. out with the cows, bang. And then she's working until after dusk every day. And some days, during calving season, or, if they're baling hay, and people grew up on farms, it's just, if you start baling hay, you keep baling until the hay is done, right? And so a couple of years ago, she went for 36 hours straight herself, without a break, without sleep, without food. 36 hours at 80 years old, probably at the time. So this is someone who's in incredibly good shape and incredibly good health. She has no medical conditions. She's on no medication. She takes no supplements, and she only goes to the doctor to get her required physical and checkup to maintain her commercial driver's license. And she she still has her commercial driver's license. So she's incredibly healthy. She's also an incredible person. She's extraordinarily interesting. She's had an amazing life, met some amazing people. I mean, even her family is pretty incredible. Her father's first cousin is or was Sir Edmund Hillary, who first climbed Mount Everest.
Wow.
Right. So that was her, that was her family. So her first cousin once removed. Pretty incredible, pretty cool stuff, and a lot of other really amazing things as well, as she told me, which are pretty crazy. Probably not enough time to go into it here, but very interesting stuff. So yeah, no, so that was amazing. We got to see her and got to hang out on the ranch, and I mean, she was just like put Elle and I to shame. So I went with Elle, and we were up there, and we absolutely loved it. We stayed in one of their little guest cabins. It's beautiful. Like, their house is so nice. She literally built this cabin or this log house herself, because they've been poor for so long. It's like, I mean, the ranchers, I mean, she was losing money on a ranch every year, and that's just how they're just driving people out of business. They have expensive lands, very valuable. There's a lot of taxes on it, and they make it very difficult to earn any money raising cattle. And so they've been losing money for years and really struggling for a long time. And most of her life, hasn't been able to afford to eat the beef that she produces, right? And so they hunt. They take down moose and elk and all these sorts of things, and they get eggs, and and that's how she fed her kids and fed herself for decades, right?
Amazing.
And yeah, so we got to see that, and Elle and I we're probably like rolling out of bed at like 9 o'clock and getting ready and going. We'd get up there, we'd meet them for sort of like a late breakfast at 10 o'clock. We're like, yeah, we'll meet you here at 10 o'clock. And they've already been working for 5 hours. They'd already been out with cows doing things for 5 hours. And then we'd go out and we'd help them, and we'd, help put in, dig fence posts and put up fences and move the cattle around. And Elle got to brand a calf or a few calves, like,
Wow.
fun with. And yeah, it was great. And we just had a lot of fun hanging out with them and seeing what's going on. And it was just she's an amazing person. Her husband Mac is an amazing guy. They're just lovely people, like literally just the nicest human beings that you could ever meet.
Yeah.
And as the law of the universe entails, because they're just the nicest human beings on earth, everybody has tried to take advantage of them at one point or another. And yet they are still just the nicest, most wonderful people, which just goes to show you what Marcus Aurelius said in Meditations, which is, like, you can have a wonderful life right now. It's just all about mindset. How you look at your life will determine whether or not you enjoy your life. And I'm paraphrasing, but that's them to a T. They've had a difficult time, a very difficult time. And as she says, she's like, I know what it's like to be hungry. I know what it's like to have to resort to eating roadkill. And but you soldier on.
Yeah.
And so Even then, with all this hardship and all these people that have taken advantage of them, they're just the most positive, nice, wonderful people, and you can't shake them. They are going to enjoy their life. They're going to enjoy the world. They're going to enjoy what this world has to offer them, regardless of what people do to them. They're not getting jaded and cynical. They're just, yeah, whatever.
That's
We'll just keep
amazing.
doing our thing. So yeah, it was really nice.
That's amazing. I think it's so cool that you took time out of a limited trip that you had to spend some time with them. You could have stayed at some resort in a big city or whatever, and you chose to go up to the middle of nowhere, Canada. I've been able to message her. She is incredibly grateful for you and was incredibly grateful to meet you and be part of your platform and get her message out again about the ranchers and the struggles they're having. And she has had a challenging year as far as acquiring hay, I understand. And
Mm.
so you were a big part of helping her with that. She mentioned to me how difficult it is for her and Mac to accept help, but you put something out on social media where you allowed people to contribute if they liked. And I think she's made such a big impact in this space, in the carnivore space, that so many people were willing to donate their money. I was able to send her a bit of money. It wasn't a ton, but hopefully
Yeah,
it
well,
helped.
thank you.
But how can people help her in this cause? Is it basically just finding the social media posts that you made so that people can contribute?
Well, they can certainly do that, and yeah, so I started a Give Send Go campaign, and apparently that's better than GoFundMe for various reasons, but it's exactly
Hmm.
the same concept, right? I guess like the GoFundMe thing when there was like the Canadian truckers that had their strike and their protest, and people were and they froze their bank accounts, froze their funds, basically tried to starve these people out, and people tried to did a GoFundMe campaign to try to support them, and the Canadian government was able to get GoFundMe people to freeze the assets and
Oh,
not
wow.
actually give it to them. Yeah, so
Wow.
um, when I started saying, "Hey, I'm going to do GoFundMe," a lot of people were like, "Don't, yeah, don't do that." Do this other one, Give Send Go, because they don't play politics the way GoFundMe does. So that's why I went with that. But it's exactly the same idea, and it's just givesendgo.com/please help Maggie, and that's the campaign, and people can find that on my Instagram as well, or on my Facebook, and I have it in links in my more recent lives, and I did a video basically saying that there was a lot of garbage going on with like land and property rights in Canada, where basically people don't own their land. The government owns everything underneath the surface of the ground, and they sell them off to oil companies and
Wow.
miners and things like that. And so she's had a high. There's a lot of natural gas in Alberta. She has a big well on her land, and it's been producing a lot of natural gas. So it's a highly producing natural gas um, reservoir there for 40, 50 years. She doesn't get any of that.
Wow.
That's sold off, auctioned off by the government, and then sold between gas companies here and there and everywhere. And they have to pay her, some like land usage price, like $3,500 a year, to trample over her crops and you know trash her land and leave gates unlocked and have $40,000 worth of cattle stolen
Oh
because they
my
left the
goodness.
damn gates unlocked, and all these other sorts of problems, and then treat her really badly, saying we own this land, we own blah blah blah, and they're like absolutely not. No, the hell you don't, you know, and and $3,500 a year. So that's what was grandfathered in back in the 70s.
Wow.
That's how much you get, is $3,500 a year, and at the time that was a decent amount,
Yeah.
you know, and it's not now. And so it didn't rise for inflation or the cost of the land or the cost of the crops that you could produce where that land is being taken up, and the road to the well is being taken up, and all these sorts of things. And at one point they just drove straight. They had a crop growing, and they just drove straight through. They didn't even just go around. I mean, it takes 2 minutes, right, to go around on the easement path. They just cut straight through and just
Wow.
killed all the crops in the way, right? I mean, just absolute pieces of garbage. And so I made a video just saying this is total bullshit, and it's just, and that's what it says on the thumbnail. It's like, this is bullshit. and and so it'll be on that as well. But and I have it yeah, on social media as well. But yeah, that's it. It's just givesendgo.com/please help Maggie. And people have been amazing. We've raised just over 30,000 Canadian dollars, which is fantastic.
Amazing.
You need 50. That's what we're trying to go for. And if we get a little more, that's even better, because they can certainly use it for the ranch. But you mentioned the hay. There was a drought this year, and there was a drought a couple of years ago, and so hay prices in Alberta have tripled, and it's very difficult because of how expensive it is to ship things, and gas prices and all these sorts of things. It's very difficult to get hay from other provinces or in America and all this sort of stuff. And so their hands are tied. And so not only is there less hay available, it's triple the price. And so that's very difficult. And so they're already losing money. And so they're using their pensions to basically keep the ranch afloat for operation costs, and getting hit with another $50,000 bill for hay, like, just couldn't happen. It wasn't in the budget.
Yeah.
They would have to sell off more land. She's had to sell off more and more land and more land to get more and more penned in, because they're just losing money, and having to sell off, having to sell off, having to sell off, having to sell off. So it's really sad. And so I was just like, I just can't see that. I just don't want to see that happen. She's such a nice person. She's had so many people take advantage of her, and she's just done nothing but give kindnesses to so many people.
Wow.
And I just couldn't see that. I didn't want to see that happening. And the other horrible possibility was they'd have to sell off half their herd, because they couldn't afford to feed them through the winter. And so they'd have to sell off half their herd to afford enough hay to feed the rest of the herd. And so now you have half the herd, and now you're trying to, maybe you have to try and buy things back, but you don't have the money then either. And
Wow.
so you have to start to try to regrow your herd. That takes years and years. And the cows that you're keeping, you're not selling, so you're not making money on them, right? There's a delay. There's years and years and years until you have a heifer that's producing cows that you can sell, and you can sell, one calf a year or something like that. You can't just keep a bunch of cows and expect to survive. You have to sell some. It's or else you go down, because there are operational costs. So I didn't want to see that, and I wanted to help out. And so I started this, and people have been just amazing. And she was literally crying when she saw people, the outpouring of people helping. But we're still going. We're over halfway there, but we still have a ways to go. And so, people listening to this, want to watch that episode with Maggie. It's just, I think it's just called, on my channel, is just, you probably look up Maggie on my channel, but you can also look up Rancher and Carnivore for 65 years, or over 65 years. That's the title. And that will come up, and it's one of my more popular videos. And just see what you think. And if that's someone you want to help out, $1, $5, whatever,
Yep.
it helps. It all adds up. And
Yep.
people have been giving more money, but they've also been giving smaller amounts. It's just whatever people are able to do really helps, because you get enough people giving, a buck or two, like, you'll get there.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so, yeah, so hopefully we can get there. But even now, with 30,000 or so, that's going to save a significant amount of her herd, which is great.
Yeah. Sounds like it. Well, that's amazing. We'll tag the link in the notes. We'll tag that episode in the notes as well. I think people will be shocked to listen to that episode and see how smart she is. I mean, 82,
Yeah.
she's learning how to sail. She's learning Spanish.
Yeah.
82 is so cool. And yeah, just again, the communication I've had with her has been absolutely amazing. She's very, very grateful for you.